All right, welcome back to another episode of Vijñapti. I'm joined here by my friend Brian. Me and Brian go back to college from, God, I think like our first semester, right?
Yeah. Freshman year, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been wanting to have Brian on for a while. He's got some interesting thoughts and some interesting perspective on things that we'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, Brian, it's good to have you on, man.
Hey, thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, I'm hoping we can have a pretty fun discussion. It'll be pretty light. We're just gonna talk about the three body problem and how it intersects with Halo. Neither of us here are like astrophysicists or anything like that, so don't expect like super in depth, complex conversations. But we're pretty well educated for our
Yeah.
status.
Hey, we watched Cosmos in college with Neil deGrasse Tyson, with Nick and Steven. So I'd say we got some pretty
Mhm.
good like astrophysics background there.
Oh yeah.
No. Yeah, no, but yeah, like I said, so the reason I invited Brian on is Brian is a huge Halo gamer. I don't know anyone who played Halo more than Brian Vigo.
Hey.
And because of that, you know the story pretty well. You know the story of Halo really well, right?
I like to think so, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. And I honestly I think science fiction and we're gonna talk about the three body problem too, which is one of my favorite sci-fi series. I honestly see sci-fi as like a very unique window into how we can think about the mind
Hmm.
because like it's thinking ahead in terms of science. Like
Hmm.
I think that personally, like the things that we think about from like a scientific perspective, like one day, if you think about it, it might not be fiction anymore. Like,
Hmm.
I'm not saying we're gonna have wars with what are those called? The Sentinels
The
or
Covenant, yeah.
the Covenant, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm not saying that's actually gonna happen or we're gonna experience something like that. Um,
Mm.
but it is like kind of looking into the future a little bit and
Yeah.
adding whatever fiction stuff is going on there. So yeah, man, I guess I'm just curious, what are your first thoughts when it comes to the nature of the mind that Halo kind of has to offer, some interesting stories or characters or whatever that you could think of.
Yeah. Um, so I guess how I can begin is well the mind is pretty amazing. It's a pretty amazing machine. It's
Hmm.
not made of metal, it's completely organic and it's super adaptable, you
Hmm.
know. Um and then like how the concept of the mind can intersect with Halo is that I like to harken back to the flood. So like I kind of
Okay.
brought up the flood like in conversation with you, and basically they're like this kind of like this deadly plague um
Uh-huh.
that like afflicts the galaxy in Halo.
Hmm.
And the thing about the flood is that not only does like when you're afflicted by the flood, which is like a bacteria,
Yeah.
not only does it just destroy your body, destroy your cells, and completely alter like your body's chemistry and just physical condition, but it also affects your mind as well. So like you
Hmm.
lose your sense of identity, um, and you lose all your memories as well, which is a pretty scary
Oh shit.
thought. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's terrifying. Yeah. The yeah, I'm glad you brought up that perspective because it's like whatever the mind is, like there is an inherently organic biological component, like our brain, right? Like our nervous
Hmm.
system. And the first thing I thought of when you said that, have you played The Last of Us or seen it?
I'm familiar with it. I've watched the HBO show, so I know a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So like the I forget what it's called there. The plague or
They
I
have
forget.
like their own version. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
virus.
Yeah. And it's that plague or virus or whatever it is, it's actually based on a real virus. It's a fungal virus that affects insects and like specifically
Hmm.
ants. And so what that like virus does is I don't know how it does it, but it'll take control of the ant's mind and
Hmm.
body and it'll get the ant to crawl up to like the highest point that it can, like in space, like a tree or a branch or whatever, and then
Hmm.
it'll like kill the ant, and this
Oh,
it'll release the spores like from the ant's like brain, and it'll like pop up, and like all the spores will like travel, and then the virus continues. And
like
that's
infect other hosts.
yeah,
Damn.
yeah, pretty pretty savage, right?
Yeah, dude, that's some nightmare fuel shit.
Yeah. No, it is. And anyway, my point is like I just like immediately thought of like that intersection of like the body and the minds, like they're inherently linked. And so potentially, I guess like the kind of the underlying phenomenon in both of those like situations is that the virus is taking over the biological system, and that in turn can infect the mind. Is that like
Yeah,
about right when it comes to the plague?
I would agree, yeah. I would
Hmm.
say so. Like especially when it relates to the flood, like the the transformation is very much physical as much as it is mental. Like they're both happening simultaneously, you know?
Hmm. Interesting. How does it like what's the story about how it affects the mental like aspect?
Um
Like what kind of stuff happens?
Mainly just kind of like what I had brought up. So like you lose like your memories, and
Mhm.
you lose like your
Oh.
very identity.
Hmm.
So like there's like I'd mentioned to you that the Halo 1 Combat Evolved has like these like terminals, which they're
Hmm.
basically like they're kind of like short lore like kind of videos. But basically
Yeah.
the one about like there's this one captain guy called
Hmm.
what's his name? Captain Keys, Jacob Keys, right? Who
Uh-huh.
he helps you
It,
tremendously
this,
through the
this is
events.
why I invited Brian on. Brian's like, we got to bring you to trivia night, man, one day, dude.
Yeah. Hey,
It makes
I'll
a lot of
smash
money.
that trivia night, dude.
Yeah, yeah. But
um
yeah, you were saying.
yeah, so like this captain guy, he helps you tremendously through the events of like the first game.
Hmm.
And then like 2/3 of the way through the game, you guys get separated, right? Like the Master Chief and Captain Keys. And
Hmm.
he actually ends up getting infected by the flood, which you cannot help him at all
Oh shit.
with that.
Okay.
So like he's very much suffering like the physical transformation, which is like excruciating. It said like that, like your bones break to make room for like flood mass and shit. It's
Hmm.
supposed to be like a very painful process,
Hmm.
physically and mentally. So
Hmm.
Jacob Keys is undergoing that, and then while he's undergoing like the physical transformation, like he's losing all of his memories, like he's losing memories of like his wife that he had, and just like other events like his military career,
Oh damn.
and then he's
That's
losing his sense of
bad.
identity as
Yeah.
well. And then while this is happening too, the grave mind, which is kind of like a singular intelligence that gives commands to the flood, is
Hmm.
kind of like it's almost kind of like reassuring, like he's like, no, like give in, you want to be part of like this singular intelligence, you know.
Hmm.
So it's pretty terrifying shit. It's like you're losing your memories, and then you have this fucking evil space worm fucking telling you to just accept it.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, that's yeah, that's the stuff of nightmares. I would not wish that on anyone. What
Mm.
what exactly is the flood?
Um, it's I guess in the most literal sense, it's like a very infectious spore, but like
Hmm.
it comes from the
Okay.
origin of it is that there was this alien species known as the primordials, which
Hmm.
they were kind of like demigods in a sense in like the galaxy of Halo, where they would
Yeah.
kind of like create new species like on distant planets and stuff.
Okay.
Um,
That's
and
interesting.
then, and at one point they had created the Forerunners, which I'd kind of mentioned the Forerunners to you. Right?
Hmm.
They were like this massive like alien civilization that went on to like create their own empire, their own kind
Hmm.
of like violent empire,
Yeah.
an empire of conquest. So they would go to other planets and just like take people's shit and just subjugate them.
Yeah.
Forerunners. So the the Forerunners, they grew kind of like discontent and they were incredibly unhappy when the
Hmm.
Primordials decided that the Forerunners were not fit to kind of shepherd the galaxy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The
Okay.
Foreigners lashed out. They had basically wiped out all the primordials. Well, sorry, not all of them, but like a large majority of them. And then the ones that did survive, they kind of like changed the structure of like they changed the structure of their body composition so that their body was kind of like particles of dust, right?
Yeah.
And then over over like several millennia, like alien species would kind of like harvest this dust. For I
Mm-hmm.
forget what the purposes were, to be honest with you. I just know that they
Mm-hmm.
were harvesting it and using it for like various purposes.
Oh, weren't they trying to like enhance their own consciousness somehow?
I think that's what it was, yeah.
Or
I
their
believe
bodies or something?
something like that, something akin to that.
Yeah.
And then so they were carrying this dust, and over time this dust kind of corrupted. It corrupted
Mm-hmm.
itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then their genes and their DNA were altered over time. So this was not like a quick process of infection. This
Mm-hmm.
happened very slowly, like over like numerous generations.
Yeah.
Then after enough time, we eventually saw like the rise of the flood, like the flood that we know of today, which are
Mm-hmm.
like these grotesque physical abominations,
Right.
space
Okay.
zombies essentially.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Damn, dude, that's the stuff of legend. Like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's like the kind of shit that you hear from like religious mythology or
Yeah.
something like
Yep.
that. Like I'm thinking of like Zeus and like the Greek pantheon or
Yeah.
like I don't know. That's
And I'm
mm,
glad that you brought up religion because Halo does actually intersect with Christianity a good bit
oh,
too.
okay.
Well, because the flood for one, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then there's this thing called the Ark in Halo, right? Which is like it's kind of like this array of like Halo rings. And, like if you
Mm,
activate them all, like you kill like the entire universe pretty much. So like think
okay.
about it. Like in Halo, there's the Ark and there's the Covenant. The Ark is there like as
Oh.
a defense against the Covenant, or sorry, the flood.
Uh-huh. Okay.
If that makes sense.
So the covenant protects the ark against the flood.
Um,
Or did I get
no, you
did I
got it right. You got it right. Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Damn. Dude, that's cool
mhm.
as fuck.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And, this might be like a weaker reference, but like, isn't there someone important in Christianity with the name John, or no?
Yeah, that's I believe that's Jesus' most important disciple in the New
Okay.
Testament.
The reason I ask is because the main
I think.
character, Master Chief, his name actually is John. So I
Okay.
think that was also intentional too on their part.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah,
Hmm.
no. It's yeah. So I studied religion in college. I just have a bachelor's degree. But one of the reasons that I studied it is I just love like myths and legends and like cosmic crazy stories like this.
Yeah,
It's just so I don't know. Like I've always been into stuff like that. And I feel
yeah,
like you have too, like through like video games and like movies and stuff.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, like you're saying,
Yeah.
science fiction, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely seek it out.
Yeah. Or
Mhm.
I mean, for me, like that's one of the reasons that I like studying religion. I'm not saying that, everyone does, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, the myth of the Pleiades, like or Greek
Mhm.
mythology, like it's just so
Yeah.
interesting to me.
I can relate. I used to love Greek mythology a lot. I don't know it as much nowadays, but like back in high school, I was pretty into that.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm not saying it actually happened, but I
Yeah.
think that like human beings are really drawn to like stories. And I
Yeah.
think that there's something special about stories that like we can learn from. I
Mhm.
I'm recalling you like saying you feel like you've learned so much like about like life from like anime and
Yeah.
like at first it kind of sounds like goofy or like silly or whatever, but like I feel like very similarly. Like I feel
Uh-huh.
like there's like something about like I don't know, and not just anime, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I do. Yeah. Very much so.
Hmm.
Um, and like to harken to the point, I wasn't saying that like anime teaches you, oh, like anime's gonna teach you to do a domain expansion or to the fucking like do jutsu
Yeah.
and shit, but
Yeah.
like it teaches you like
Yeah.
just like I don't know, just valuable life lessons, like take care of your loved ones,
Right.
be happy with your lot in life, like don't be greedy. Like it
Mhm.
just teaches you like nice little yeah, nice little life lessons that you can kind of take with you in your day-to-day life.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. Um, Before Jordan Peterson kind of went off the cliff and before Joe Rogan kind of went off the cliff,
Hmm.
he had an interesting podcast with Joe, and I forget what the context was, but he said something profound that I think was pretty important to me. And he said, fiction is reality devoid of everything that's trivial. So
Oh,
that's pretty deep, right?
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, in a story, like you don't see them like going to the grocery store and like buying
Mhm.
beans and, like mowing the lawn and just all the regular stuff that's not
Yeah.
that exciting in life. Like you see like all of the action and the drama
Mhm.
and I think that's why people are so like drawn to stories.
I think so. I think so. It's because I think deep down maybe people crave like that excitement, like the danger,
Hmm.
that exists in like stories like that.
Yeah.
And it's like a safe way to consume or to get that experience,
Yeah.
just by
Yeah.
immersing yourself in a really good book or a really good TV show you like, a really good movie, maybe, or a
Hmm.
game.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And even with stuff that's not like fighting stuff, like I don't know, like a story about a romance or a story
Hmm.
about going to school at a new, I don't know, making a new scientific discovery, like
Mm.
anything that's worth telling a story about, like involves some level of risk. Like it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be like life and death risk, but it can just be
Yeah.
like like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, yeah. Mm.
Yeah, like the inherent risk of whatever you're doing.
Hmm.
Um, But yeah, cool. Glad we could kind of like make that aside because like I think it kind of ties into like again like science fiction and why like, obviously this stuff didn't happen, but
Hmm.
I think it's still pretty interesting to like talk
Definitely.
about ideas.
Hmm.
Yeah, cool. So we talked a little bit about the flood. Yeah, tell me more about the flood. I remember so we watched a video kind of leading up to this and
Hmm.
they were saying in like the flood basically like you were telling me kind of that it was like had this like telepathic ability or it could like send
Oh,
messages like across the galaxy or some shit like that.
yeah. I
Yeah,
forgot
tell
to
me
bring that
about that.
up.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot to it, but yeah, basically, like the flood. What's really crazy and like amazing about them is that so like if enough like flood life forms gather together, you get what's called like a grave mine, which is kind of like a singular,
Oh,
like
that worm
intelli-
thing you were saying?
yeah, yeah, it's
Okay.
basically like a singular intelligence that will kind of like direct the flood and kind of like give them instructions. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the what the grave mine really wants is to just consume more. It's just consume more, become larger, like infect more areas of the galaxy. It's just to spread. That's the goal of
Yeah.
the flood and of the grave mine ultimately.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the grave mine very much has like this ability to communicate telepathically with its underlings. Which can be like like hey, I want you to like infect this planet.
Hmm.
So like it'll give the flood instructions to like okay, take over the ship, fly over that planet, and just go crazy. Just start infecting people like crazy.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, this is like I want to know what you think of this. I just thought of this. What do you think about the flood as an analogy for culture? And I guess
Hmm.
to be more specific for economies. Because basically, from my perspective, what economies do, whether it's capitalism or communism or whatever, at least in its current state, is it wants to consume, it
Mm-hmm.
wants to spread. And now that we're like in the 21st century globalized era, we can like communicate not telepathically, but we
Mm.
don't have to use it doesn't have to be like face-to-face communication. We can like make transactions like across the globe, but it's kind
Uh-huh.
of towards this like consume, spread, colonize,
Yeah.
replicate, extract, like that. What do you think?
Yeah. Um,
Or am I
I think
being
there's
kind of
certainly
woke?
say again, sorry.
Or am I being kind of woke?
Mm, maybe a tiny bit, but what was I gonna say? No, I think there's definitely a connection.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely in terms of like what both set out to do. It's like culture. It very much intends to like to spread, to make itself known, to be more prevalent in a society.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Same thing with the flood. It very much attempts to achieve the same outcome, albeit with different results. Um, like I champion the spread of culture over the spread of like a very virulent pathogen.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
um,
I'll try to tone down the wokeness from now on. No, I'm just
yeah, yeah. I'm just
uh
fucking with you. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
We're both pretty open about being like political lefties.
yeah,
For anyone listening, just saying.
yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, I'd
but,
say they're definitely similar in that regard. They're
mhm.
both trying to spread. Yeah.
Yeah, like at a basic level. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, that's cool. Cool. Yeah. The the telepathy thing is like pretty cool. Um, yeah, I don't really know what I'd tie into that. It's just interesting.
Mhm.
Um, what do you think about, let's see, like I guess it's kind of like communicating at a distance.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really have anything that I could tie it into directly.
Mm. Communicating at a distance, or like,
Okay. Maybe you could explain how it works a little bit. Like, is it like kind of like sending, like beaming a message to the other flood, or is it like just like instantly like that? Like they understand
I
the
think
flood. The-
it might be more beaming a message. I guess. I guess I
Or
can
is it
explain it
like
a
they
little
hear
bit
it like
better, but yeah, it's more like beaming a message. What's
Mhm,
interesting too is that the Gravemind can also communicate with non-flood with non-flood members. So like
mhm,
it can communicate with Master Chief, which we did see like in the events of Halo 3. Like he's fully capable of communicating with his enemies, which in
mhm,
this case was Master Chief.
mhm,
Like during the events of that game. So there's like this one mission where like Master Chief, he's trying to save Cortana because they were separated for like a
mhm,
good portion of the game.
mhm,
Um, and then he comes in to rescue her, like inside of like this like flood infested like Covenant building, like massive structure, right? That's just taken over by the flood. It looks nothing. It looks completely different from what it did before. Like all the purple Covenant architecture is replaced by like the ugly yellow and green flood biomass. So
mhm,
Master Chief is navigating through there, and while he's making his way deeper inside, like the Gravemind,
mhm,
he's like constantly like communicating with the Master Chief, trying to deter him, trying to discourage him. Trying to saying whatever he can to him to like make him give up on his mission. But he said, "Fuck that." I need my AI.
Hey, nice.
But I
All
guess
right.
where I was going with that is that so the Gravemind, I believe how it works is that he beams messages to whoever the recipients are. So like be it like his flood subordinates or like in his case his enemies. So like Master Chief or Cortana.
Mhm. Okay, interesting. Is there like a delay in time, or do they know like that?
I think they know almost instantly. I want to say.
Okay, interesting. That's
Hmm.
cool. Yeah. Do you think something like telepathy is possible? Now, I'm not saying like real telepathy, like
Yeah.
you hear someone's thoughts and shit like that,
Yeah.
but I'll give the example that I'm thinking of. So apparently, plants like
Yeah.
leaves or bushes or some plants, certain plants, they can actually tell what color clothes you're wearing.
Oh.
Now, I don't know exactly how they do that or the exact mechanism that it's like involved in that scientifically. But
Hmm.
basically they can like sense somehow, I think through like light probably or some shit like that. if you're
Hmm.
wearing like a red shirt or a blue shirt or a green shirt or a yellow shirt. Um,
Mm. Mm.
and in that sense, it's almost like kind of like maybe a form of communication. Like you're communicating information non-verbally, but
Hmm.
like obviously it's not like you're reading the plants
Yeah,
shit like that.
yeah. Like
Mhm.
I get what you're saying. Like you're not inside the plant's head. Like, oh, I need to photosynthesize by like 3 p.m. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Do
Hmm.
you have any like any examples or any stuff that you could think of there?
I don't have any like specific examples, but like I guess maybe like a moment of like again not like true telepathy, but like I think of like whenever like you or like someone else like think of like the same thing. Like you could be like in a conversation, and you know it's like a jinx moment kind of. Like you guys
Yeah.
think like the same thing. Like you guys are on the same wavelength, I guess. And in that way, like you're both on a you will have a telepathic connection. You know.
Okay. Yeah, I can kind of see that. I'll have to think about that more. Like you kind of just like you know what they're thinking. Like
Yeah.
you just look at him and you're like, all right, he wants to get fucking wings right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. He wants to go up and
I mean,
I don't
we've probably
know.
been in that situation before. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 definitely. There's a really good quick side note. There's a really good wings place at U of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign called Winging Out.
Mhm.
You gotta go.
Highly recommend. Highly recommend.
Highly
Especially if
recommend.
you're fucked up.
All right. Keep it keep it consciousness related. But hey, that's an alteration of consciousness.
That is, yeah. You're not wrong.
Uh but cool. Yeah. Yeah, no, I have to think about that more because it is kind of like communicating like non-verbally,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I would think so. Yeah, like it's like I think of it as like oh, like he or she thought the same thing that I was thinking in in the exact moment. You know,
Uh-huh.
like I don't know. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. Totally. Well, cool. Yeah, so we got the flood, we got telepathy. Are there any other topics in Halo that you'd like to like address like in terms of like I don't know, like the mind or stuff where they're doing stuff with people's consciousness or stories or stuff like that?
Um, I think the flood is definitely the one that like relates to consciousness the most,
Hmm.
especially with like the mental aspect. I'm not too sure that like there's other things about Halo that really like intersect with it as cleanly. Because
Hmm.
I mean, I didn't mention like the Covenant or like the Spartan program and things like that, but that's more so that gets into the more like nitty gritty like Halo.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm
That
trying to
seems
say is it's not very related to consciousness. You know, like
yeah,
I'm more
seems
than happy to go into it, but
mhm.
it won't be very consciousness related.
Yeah, yeah. It seems maybe more it's kind of like politics and like military history of Halo.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, very much.
Okay. Cool, cool. Well, there's two things that I wanted to get to, and then maybe we could talk a little bit about three body and or maybe that's kind of where it might intersect actually.
Okay.
So, so the first one was that like dust thing that you were talking about from the primordials. Tell me about
Yeah.
that.
Say again?
That like dust thing that you were talking about. It's like a
Yeah.
dust. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah. It's dust. Yeah.
mhm. So what is it? And how are they
Uh,
using it yeah, what were they doing with it in the story?
um. So the dust, it's kind of just like to my understanding, it's at the primordials, like in an attempt to like kind of like to not go completely extinct. They
Hmm.
change the composition of their body so that instead of being like I don't know, made up of like flesh and nerves and like bones, like
Hmm.
their body was just made up of like dust, like little particles of dust.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
and I'm not too sure what they were using it for, to be honest with you. I think they were feeding it to like their pets. I think that was one use case that I do remember.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
they were feeding it to like their pets and stuff.
Like dog things.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there were alien species that were also consuming it as well. So it was inside of their body. They were ingesting it
Hmm.
inside of their bodies. And that's kind of it, really. At least to my knowledge of what I know about that, the primordial dust.
Hmm. Okay. Cool. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Maybe we can move on to the next topic.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so this one I thought is really interesting. And I've heard this idea like other places. So you were saying that like basically the primordials came to the galaxy and they like started life there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh huh.
So there's a really interesting idea that I think of when I heard that, and it's called panspermia. Have you
Hmm. I have heard of that. Yeah. Isn't it like it's like a theory
might
about
have
maybe
talked
like
about it
the black
before.
weapon?
I might have talked about it before.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I'm like a little bit familiar. It's like
Yeah.
a theory for the creation of life, isn't it?
Hmm.
Um, where the theory goes that like life started because like there was like an asteroid that like crashed onto like the surface of Earth,
Hmm.
and like they were like bacteria, like single-celled organisms on the asteroid, and
Hmm.
that kind of serves as an explanation for like how life started, I guess. You
Yeah.
can tell me if I'm like off base or not.
No, no, that's totally it. It's the idea that life originated somewhere outside the Earth. Like
Yeah.
that's that's what it is at the most basic level.
Oh,
And
cool.
there are
Yeah.
different ways that people go about like saying how that might have happened or whatever, but um at the end of the day, I find it convincing
Hmm.
and you know, can't say if it really happened. It was a
Hmm.
very long time ago.
Yeah.
But there's this guy named Francis Crick. Do you know him?
No.
He was one of the co-discoverers of the double helix structure of DNA.
Hmm.
So he's like a very hardcore like science guy. Like he's very like deep in like the history of science.
Mm.
And as like kind of as he's like exploring life at the most basic level, he's like, holy shit, this thing is like super complex. It's like
Hmm.
stupidly complex. And so
Yeah.
he's thinking about evolution and he's like, well, hold up, for, you know, non-organic matter to go to like amino acids and like other basic building blocks of life, like it's kind of difficult, but it's plausible. But for it to then go from those basic building blocks to actual living cells, he's like,
Hmm.
I just don't know how that could happen. And I
Yeah.
think because he was also a mathematician and he ran his own like calculations on what he thought the likelihood to be. And I think it's something like 10 to the power of, how do you do exponents? Like basically like an exponent where like the number that's above the 10 is like 86. So it's like 10
Mm.
followed by 86 zeros.
Damn.
A 1 out of 10 followed by 86 zeros chance
Yeah.
of life actually like making that change
Uh,
just like without any assistance whatsoever.
yeah. I see.
Yeah. Now, he wasn't saying like divine intervention or God or something like that. He's like a
Mhm.
very like adamant atheist, and he's like, no, I don't believe that. Whatever
Yeah.
happened had to have had a physical, real mechanism that like drove that process.
Huh.
And he's like, huh, well, if that's the case, what if life came from outside the Earth? And actually,
Oh,
that's how life started on Earth. What if
yeah.
this incredibly complex thing? Because if you look at a single cell, dude, I don't know how Steven does it. Steven works crazy hard, and
Uh,
I just had him on actually, and he's brilliant when it comes to understanding that stuff. It's like a
definitely.
machine. It's like a little factory
Yeah,
with
it is. Yeah.
all these little like drills and turbines and like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so Crick was like, there's no way this just happened randomly. I'm
Uh-huh.
not going to invoke God because I don't believe in that,
Uh-huh.
but I'm going to invoke another mechanism that I think is actually plausible, and that's panspermia.
Oh, I
That's
see.
the that's the panspermia,
Damn.
I guess.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
hmm what are your thoughts?
Um, I kind of concur with that theory. I don't know.
hmm
'Cause like the alternative is, right? Like what like so like life just spawned out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like we just had like single cell organisms just like appear. Like and you kind of said that they're machines. Like they're not simple by any means, you know?
Yeah,
Like they're tiny but they're like super complex. You know, they got the mitochondria, the ribosomes, like all these other like mechanisms that are like at play that like make
yeah.
the this one little single cell organism operate and function.
hmm
So yeah, I mean, I can kind of get down with panspermia. You know that like life originated on like an asteroid, maybe had crashed here, and
hmm
you know single cell organisms. At one point, you know, they thrived on Earth, and then they went on to replicate, divide, and then eventually we got multicellular organisms down the
Yeah,
road.
and then you just keep going. Yeah,
Yeah,
and here's the other reason I think that it's that I find it plausible. We watched a video on what was it? Not the Kardashev scale, the Fermi paradox.
yeah,
Fermi paradox?
uh huh,
Yeah, it's basically like the universe is so huge, like, there should be life, but why don't we see any? And there's
yeah,
lots of different ways that people go about solving it, but the case remains like the universe is potentially infinite. Like
yeah,
we don't know, like it's just so utterly mind-bogglingly huge. Who
yeah,
can say that there isn't life elsewhere in the cosmos and that
hmm,
somehow it made its way here? You know what I
yeah.
mean?
I do, yeah,
Yeah. Now again, if we want to actually say like this happened, then we need evidence, and we don't have any evidence. Like
yeah, yeah,
there is none. But
uh-huh.
I think the possibility should remain open, personally.
Yeah. I agree. I think the universe is so vast that like I think it's unlikely that humans are the only intelligent life out there. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Who knows? Maybe the primordials gonna come and revisit us one
Yeah.
day. Um, but uh, but yeah, that was the other consciousness related topic that I had. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, any I forgot how we were gonna tie the three body problem into it. You just watched some videos on the three body problem, right?
A couple. Yeah. I watched a few.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so what did you see? What did you like think was interesting? What did you think was not interesting? Anything.
Um. Yeah. I think the most interesting thing that I kind of discovered about the three body problem is that so okay um so when you have two astral bodies, right? So
hmm
it's a lot easier to like predict and to determine like where those two astral bodies are going to be positioned like over time, right?
hmm
For you know for scientists to be able to calculate two astral bodies, it's like not too difficult. Like
hmm
they have a pretty easy time, like
Yeah.
kind of like through like calculations, through a lot of mathematics, being able to predict where two astral bodies will be positioned because they're going to share like a common center of gravity.
hmm
Um,
Between the two.
However, when you introduce a third astral body, that's when everything just goes crazy because
Yeah.
it's a chaotic system. Like there's just no way. There's just no way to predict. Like you can create models. Like okay, like we have like three, you know, like maybe like one star and two planets. You know, this is where they're positioned at this point in time. But if you have three astral bodies, there's just no way to predict where they're going to be positioned like you know like 10 centuries from now. There's no
Mm,
way because it's just there's too many unknowns, too many variables to account for. Um, and what I found interesting is that I think it was the one by Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was kind of explaining it. He
mhm,
described it as a chaotic system, but chaotic not meaning random, chaotic meaning unpredictable. He made that very important distinction that
mhm.
it's unpredictable, it's not random.
Yeah.
Nothing is ever really random, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, no. I appreciate you making that point, because I made a video on like the three body problem, like the physical three body problem in physics and
Mm-hmm.
consciousness. And basically, like everything that you just said, like is what I said about consciousness. There's
Mm,
so many different factors, so many different systems. There's biological systems, there's chemical systems, there's purely physical systems that are involved in the body, and even higher, like psychological, social systems, like our relationship to the environment and stuff like that. Uh,
mm,
that I think consciousness is like the most complex thing ever. And
mm,
even though you can't, like, you can look at all the different systems that are associated with it, and you can see like what are the different laws, what are the different social phenomenon, what are the different physical systems involved. But consciousness is something that you could never predict because it's just too utterly complex.
yeah.
I think that was the main point I was trying to make. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. What I'm saying is that like with stuff like psychology, like there's only so far you can go.
Yeah.
Because there's just way too many factors involved.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Mhm. Yeah. What do you think of that idea of like tying it together with consciousness?
Um, yeah, I'd say consciousness is pretty unpredictable,
Hmm.
I'd say. Um, and it is like incredibly complex too, like I would say. Like it's not even something that you can like it's not something that you can hold in your hand, you know? Like consciousness is just like this like state of being.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's like you know that the brain is like deeply involved in consciousness, but if
Mm-hmm.
you open someone's brain, like you're not gonna see their thoughts, like
Nope. Nope.
their feelings or what
Yeah.
they love or what they want to do for fun, like
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I do, yeah. Because consciousness, I guess the best way to describe it is like it's just like because I mean how like what it is essentially is just like a bunch of nerves and synapses just firing at like one time, like billions of neurons,
Hmm.
synapses, and I mean that's essentially us, you know?
Mm,
Like if you want to boil it down on a scientific level,
hmm.
like our thoughts are kind of just like, neurons.
I disagree a
Uh,
little bit.
Okay, okay.
And you could tell me if you disagree. I want to hear what you think. I think yes, absolutely. It's like our neurons and our brain and our nervous system, but I think it's like a process or a relationship between our neurons, our brains, our bodies, and our body's relationship to our environments.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about it, our brains need something to take like as an object of consciousness. So
Mm-hmm.
if it doesn't have an environment to like exist in, it can't really be conscious of anything.
Okay.
What do you think?
I didn't think about it. I didn't think about it like that. It is a very interesting take on it. But yeah, no.
I mean, you're free to disagree. Like I'm just totally
Yeah.
curious to hear what your
Um,
perspective is on it.
no, because like, what was I gonna say? So like, if you're in a, let's say like you're in a sleep deprivation tank, right? You're obviously not gonna have any thoughts. You're just sitting in this like dark, empty void.
Hmm.
Like yeah, like your neurons are firing and stuff. Like you might be thinking, oh, I'm just in darkness, but like there's
Hmm.
no stimulation, there's no environment there. So I
Yeah.
do kind of see where you're going with like your previous point.
Yeah.
And like
And therefore there's like no consciousness, or if there is consciousness, it's like
it's
very
very
like
dim. It's very like limited. It's like literally all you're gonna think is like, oh, it's terribly dark in here. I can't feel anything. I can't,
Yeah,
I can't hear anything.
yeah, like
So like I guess a big part of consciousness is like the environment that we interact with on a day-to-day basis.
yeah, I think so too. Yeah, like I'm in a car, I'm in a house, I'm in a argument, like whatever the context is, like
Yeah,
that like affects like what your thoughts will be, what your state of mind will be.
yeah. There's so many factors to kind of influence consciousness. Like you're gonna be in a very different state of mind at work than you're gonna be at home.
Hmm.
You know, and
Yeah.
at the state of mind as well. Like if you're in a good mood or a bad mood, like all these like factors are influenced by our environment.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I yeah, I agree.
Hmm.
Of course yeah. Uh well, cool. Do you have anything else consciousness, Halo, three body problem related? I remember what I was gonna say now. It's
Yeah.
gonna sound kind of dumb or kind of like trivial. I think consciousness is the ultimate three body problem because
Ooh.
it's not just one factor, it's not just two factors, it's not just three factors. It's like I think it's an infinite amount of factors because
Hmm.
when you take like the all of the body systems together and how complex that is, but then
Hmm.
like we just said, you add in the environment and we live
Hmm.
in a truly infinite universe, right?
Hmm.
You know, regardless you know what you believe, it's like the universe is like potentially infinite
Yeah.
and what lies beyond it, you know,
We don't even know.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you can't know in a certain sense. Um, you can imagine, you can speculate, but
Hmm.
yeah, all that to say, like, I think that consciousness is the ultimate three body problem. What do you think?
Hmm. I can kind of see it a little
Hmm.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all very different people, different motivations, different personalities and stuff. So we're already pretty complex in that regard. So everyone
Hmm.
kind of has like a different consciousness, I guess. But
Hmm.
then when you add in the environment, there's just like a ton. You just added like thousands of variables.
Yeah.
Like where's this person gonna be like in like 10 years? Like yeah, like what
Like
mental
across
condition?
time.
Yeah, across time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Hmm.
Cool. Cool. All right, man. Well, did you have anything else you wanted to discuss from
Uh, no, yeah, I think I kind of covered everything really. Got like
okay.
Halo body related.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, Brian Vigo, PhD in Halo studies, everyone. It's been a pleasure having your expertise
Hey,
and yeah, I really had fun this conversation.
hey, same man, same. And if I'd love for you to have me again if we ever have like another discussion about Halo or any series really. Like we're both
Yeah.
into like, Dark Souls, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll find something about consciousness about that. You know.
Yeah, for sure. Brian and I have played like a shit ton of video games together in college, so I'm sure we'll have like plenty
Yeah.
of context to draw on.
Yeah. Cause yeah, I'm of the belief there's a lot of games out there that like kind of like experiment with like the human condition, you know.
Mm,
I
okay.
guess like not to take up too much time, but like I find Dark Souls very
Very
fascinating
good.
because like what was I gonna say? Because like just the concept of it, like like your guy, he literally cannot die, which is it's kind of like a predicament in that way.
Hmm.
Like you're just forced to kind of like toil along and like fix the world. Like your guy just cannot die. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, no. That we could talk about that next time, man. That's a
Yeah,
really
yeah,
I think there's like oh, we should have well we could save that for another time maybe. I was
yeah,
thinking
yeah.
it'd be cool to talk about Cortana a little bit, just like AI,
Oh,
like interaction with consciousness or whatever, but
yeah. I don't know too much about that, admittedly.
Hmm.
Um, it would be cool though, like if I was like a really big like Halo lore buff, but
Hmm.
yeah, I can't say I know a whole lot.
That's your
Talking out of my
dissertation
ass.
on your dissertation's done on Cortana,
No,
basically.
no. Yeah, yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, no, that definitely be down to have you back and discuss like, because like I think there's so many like because science is just gonna keep going, if the
yeah,
world science is just gonna keep going and going and we're gonna keep making new discoveries. So I think that we need to start thinking of like ethical considerations. Like, okay, what if AI does produce consciousness somehow? Like, how would we
yeah,
know? Like, oh, you know what I mean? Like it's stuff
yeah.
that
No, I do. Like, it brings forth a lot of interesting questions. Like, if AI form their own consciousnesses, like, are they people at that point? Like, do
hmm
we need to start giving like AI rights?
hmm
It
Yeah,
brings a lot of interesting questions.
yeah, for sure. And you know, not to beat a dead horse or anything, but again, I think science fiction is such a unique tool that we have. One way of looking at things that could potentially offer like some answers to those questions, or at least give us new ways to think about those questions.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, it's been fun. I'd love to have you back on. This was a great discussion, and yeah, I'll see you next time, man.
Yeah, it was fun. Peace
Yeah.
out, man. See ya.
All right. Peace out. Bye, guys.